Good day. I'm Elliot Buckholtz, CEO of your YWCA Retirement Fund. This presentation will cover association contribution rates to the retirement fund, and more specifically, your YWCA's role in ensuring a dignified retirement for your employees who make a career of service to the YWCA. The YWCA Retirement Fund's mission is to ensure income in retirement for employees of participating YWCA associations. However, our goal as a financial institution and a vital part of the YWCA organization is a bit more specific. We consider our goal to be to provide employees with a dignified retirement after a career of service to the YWCA movement. I want to briefly cover what pensions are and how they relate to the YWCA. A pension is simply a source of income in retirement. Pensions have been offered in the United States since shortly after the Revolutionary War. However, they really didn't become more widely offered until the early to mid-20th century. Pensions have been viewed as a reward for a career of service to an employer. Until the mid-20th century, it was pretty common for a person to work for one employer for the majority, if not all of their career. However, in the latter part of the 20th century, this became less common. As the workforce moved away from this idea of one employer for life, many of the public sector companies transitioned to other retirement vehicles such as 401ks. These are less costly to the employer, but they also provide less of a retirement benefit unless the employee contributes significantly. While pension plans are now in the minority among the public sector, many nonprofit organizations still offer them as an offset to comparatively lower compensation. They're also still a great way to encourage careers and reward employees who do stay. In 1924, the YWCA movement recognized the need to provide women who worked for the YWCA with a way to ensure they would be able to retire. This was why the YWCA Retirement Fund was founded and began providing the benefit in 1925. Furthermore, at the June 1976 27th National Convention of YWCAs, the leadership recommitted to this belief in the necessity of a retirement benefit for women in the workplace by voting to amend the National Constitution to require that all associations participate in the YWCA Retirement Fund. When we talk about saving for retirement, we often think of it as a three-legged stool. First, there is the benefit provided by the retirement fund. Second, there's the benefit that an employee will get from Social Security after they retire. And finally, there's personal savings. Whatever gap there is between retirement needs and those first two income sources must be made up by personal savings. Certainly, everybody's needs are going to be somewhat different when it comes to how much they'll need in retirement, as there are many different factors that will affect that. That said, there is an industry standard of a roughly between 70% to 85% replacement ratio that is needed. So what do we mean by replacement ratio? A replacement ratio is simply the amount of income that a person will receive in retirement, calculated as a percentage of their final rate of pay. So, if a person makes $50,000 a year in their final year of employment, and we say they will need an 80% replacement ratio, this means that they will need $40,000 a year in retirement. We expect that a retiree will generally require less income than they needed during their career for several reasons, such as that they should no longer have any work-related expenses, their tax requirements should be lower, they no longer need to save for retirement, and hopefully they're not supporting any dependents. I'd like to focus a little bit more on YWCA salaries and how they impact readiness for retirement. 2/3 of YWCA employees make less than $50,000 a year. The median U.S. salary across all sectors is a little over $54,000. Further, the median U.S. salary for women is a bit over $49,000 a year. So the bad news here is that there is still a gender gap in wages, but the good news is that that gap has continued to close over the last several decades, and appears to still be directionally correct. The median compensation across all YWCAs is a little over $42,000. This illustrates the difficulty the average YWCA employee will have in saving personally for retirement and the importance of an employer-paid retirement benefit like the retirement fund. Like most organizations, there is a portion of the YWCA employer base that will be transient. This is one of the reasons we have a 2-year wait to begin participating in the retirement fund, so that associations do not have to fund accounts for people who stay less than 2 years. Once an employee crosses that 2-year threshold, our data shows that at least 1/3 stay for 10 years or more, which means that they are dedicating some or all of their career to the YWCA. Getting back to association contribution rates, the last point I want to address is the effect an association's contribution rate will have on their employees' ability to reasonably retire with an adequate replacement ratio. Although the plan provided by the fund has been adjusted over time since its founding in 1925, it has historically provided for only one contribution rate by associations. Prior to 2001, this was 10%, which is still the default contribution rate if no other option is elected. As part of some significant plan changes in 2001 that were put in place to address association needs, 2 additional contribution tiers were included, 7.5% and 5%. This is also when the 40% match that the retirement fund provides was introduced. In 2008, in response to the global financial crisis that affected all employers, including YWCAs, the fund added a lower contribution rate of 3% to allow associations to navigate these rough financial waters without being unable to meet their financial retirement obligations. While it was understood that this contribution level was not optimal to providing for the retirement needs of the workforce, it was seen as a reasonable and necessary stopgap. Earlier, I covered the 3 sources of income that are available to a retiree: the fund benefit, Social Security, and personal savings. Whatever the first 2 do not provide for must be made up with personal savings. To demonstrate how your association's election of contribution rate will directly impact what your employees will need to save in order to be able to retire, the following data will illustrate the savings requirements put upon employees at the 4 different contribution levels available. For purposes of simplicity, the examples assume an association maintains the same contribution rate over the employee's career. For these examples, we will use a hypothetical employee who started her career making $40,000 annually, worked for 35 years, and is now retiring at age 65. We also make assumptions for her annual salary increases and interest crediting from the fund. Finally, we assume that this employee is taking the maximum benefit available with no beneficiary. Her final salary after working 35 years will be $79,000. At an 80% replacement ratio, her retirement needs are $63,000 a year. First, we will look at a 10% YWCA. When you add in the 40% match, this employee has been getting 14% of compensation contributed to the plan. At retirement, the YWCA retirement plan will provide for 41% of her retirement needs. Social Security, on average, will always provide for about 30%. So once you total those first 2 sources, this employee will need to have savings that will account for 9% of her needs annually. When we move down to the 7.5% YWCA, or 10.5% total after 40% match, the retirement plan now covers 31% of her retirement needs, and after Social Security, she will need to cover the remaining 19% of her retirement needs. At a 5% YWCA, the retirement plan will only cover 21% of the retirement needs. So after Social Security, this employee will need to provide for 29% of retirement needs through personal savings. And then finally, at the 3% YWCA, the retirement plan will only provide for 12% of retirement income needs. After Social Security, this person will need to be providing for 38% of their needs annually throughout retirement. In summary, for nearly 100 years, the YWCA Retirement Fund has provided for the retirement needs of employees who dedicate some or all of their career to the YWCA movement. A pension plan like the fund is a much-needed benefit for people who dedicate themselves to our nonprofit mission-based organization so that they can eventually retire without extreme financial burden. And lastly, the contribution level that you elect to each year has a direct impact on your employees' retirement savings. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at the address shown. Have a nice day.